here we go. It's me, and I have some other guests. I'm sorry, something weird happened earlier and LinkedIn got disconnected. So now we're here, and I'm going to invite the guests on that we have so far. We'll see if other people join us. So we have Cordelia Gaffar, we have Brooke Roll, we have Stace Williams, and we have Andrea Clow. And we may have more people joining. I invited other leaders to come on, but thank you for joining us. We are here now on the virtual. Gosh, we're at a party. Hello. Look. Today, LinkedIn's been a little bit finicky. So every time I go to join, I have to stop the broadcast and start over. I'm like, what is happening here? Earlier this morning, we had an amazing time. We did have some of the leaders that were in the book come on. Hopefully hi, Sarah. Hopefully some of them will do that. I might start sending links to the rest of the coaches and we'll just have a whole coach powwow because I don't see anybody else on here. So what I want to do with this, I'm sorry, keep looking to see if there's anybody that's saying they can't get in or something. So I think we're good now. What I want to do is I want us to go around. Well, I'm going to tell you why everybody's here right now. So none of these ladies that are on the screen are in the book. So if you've heard about that from earlier, they're not. But they are caring leadership coaches, and I have designated them so. And they are caring leadership coaches inside of my community that's based upon the book. So if you read the book already, or you're going to get the book, you'll see that we talk about a self-assessment. We talk about a support system that involves a community with coaches, an academy that really is meant to help you fill in the area that you might need some help in based on what the assessment says. So what I did is I went ahead and handpicked 8 coaches, which I might start inviting most of them back on if some other folks aren't coming in here, and we'll have everybody on the screen. And the coaches are really, I selected them because I felt like they already embody caring leadership behaviors. Are they perfect? No, I'm not either. Either are you. The idea is that I felt like they could work more with leaders around the behaviors and the practices that I profess inside the book. So that's why they're here. And what I want to do now is have everybody kind of go around. Hi there, Lisa and Renee and Brian and Deborah, and yay! Hello. What I want to do now is let's go around and look at, talk about the parts in the book that really spoke to you. Maybe it's stories that spoke to you. What do you think it is that's, I guess, the special sauce about the book, I guess? Let's start with Cordelia.
Hi. First of all, congratulations, Heather. This is an amazing work of art. I just want to say that. And do I have to pick one piece about the okay. Since you narrowed me down to one piece, I really like the flow of it. I like the fact that it's so relatable. It's a guide and a story at the same time. And then there's practical ways to just apply it right now to your business, whatever level of business you have. And the leaders are, again, very relatable. So I love that. I also love the fact that you've identified what are the 9 behaviors, because everyone wants to care, right? And I love how you define that piece too. That there's caring, but it's not the same way you care in your social life, so I love the defining of the terms that you're using. That's super important, and that is often quite missing in these books. So that's what I appreciate most.
Thank you. Let's go next.
Hello. So, hi everyone. Of course, thank you, Heather, for inviting us here, and also, of course, writing this amazing book. And of course, I love the word caring, and that's because I think it also makes me remember another caring leader, Bob Chapman, always says, maybe you don't have to love everyone, which we hope they do, but at least you want to care for everyone, right? So the caring leadership definitely speaks to my heart. And I love, and I'm not going to ruin it and say it in my words, but I just want to read this piece because it even has an exclamation mark with a heart in it. With the heart in it means a lot to me. So it says, caring for people means that we care for them for their own good, right? We're committed to seeing them succeed for themselves, not just for what they can do for us and our team or organization. That That is at the beginning of the book, and it means so much because it's all about all the other attributes. Really, that's the foundation of everything you say, and you embody it as a person. So of course I'm going to be around you and follow you wherever you are. So love the book and love to be here with all of you. So that's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Brooke. Thank you. Stace, Andrea, who wants to go next?
Sure, I'll go. So yes, congratulations. It's so excited. I was just talking with my husband today in the car, and he said that these are the moments like we are experiencing with you right now that we have to cherish and be together and celebrate, because that's what life is about. And there are few and not so many sit down and write a book as you did, but you didn't just write a book, you interviewed lots of people. So let me just point that out to folks. If you ordered it, read it, or you haven't yet, it's full of wisdom. So what I loved about it, I have one favorite chapter as of right now. I'll probably reread it again. Mine is Involve Them. And it really spoke to me from the beginning, starting with the canoe lesson, because I have struggled as a leader with this idea of, do I canoe by myself, or do I invite people to be with me? Even though I know that we go faster when there are a lot of people in the canoe and rowing together. But I'm also a very strong individual who just wants to have control over things, or wanted to. And so this really put me back into that, into my leadership development of what I went through. And I remember that I am here because of other caring leaders. So as I was reading the book, it really reminded me all these stories of all the leaders that cared for me in my corporate career, who helped me be who I am right now and to be where I am right now. So that's the message I'm leaving you, whoever is watching and listening to this, that this book will help you be that person who is going to change other people's lives, and your team and your employees will thank you. So pick up a copy of the book.
Who wants to go next?
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Stace. I'm one of the Caring Leadership Coaches. And again, Heather, hearty congratulations. This book is fabulous. I'm an engineer by training, and so, of course, my tabs are all arranged neatly, but it's heavily marked up. Heather, I have to tell you, the first thing I liked was the introduction in the book. You managed in just 3 pages to do 2 things that are so crucial for authentic, caring leadership and communication. You managed to give a clear articulation of your personal why, in your own voice, what drove you. And you also shared the humility that I think is a key characteristic of you. You have so much to be proud of, my friend, and yet your humility shines through. And I think that is something that struck me about many of the leaders profiled in this book. I counted 90 of them, and I'm a former engineer. I'm not good at math. I'm okay, at arithmetic. I'm better at advanced math. But I enjoyed their stories. And one person in particular that you cited several times who really, really resonated with me was Phil Cohen of Cohen Architectural Woodworking. The range of industries, the types of businesses that Heather profiles in this book, truly amazing. You will see yourself in this book somewhere, my friends. When you get your hands on a copy or you pick it up on your Kindle edition, you will see yourself. And Phil talks about, as a CEO, knowing that he can do more to destroy a marriage than a counselor or a therapist if people go home stressed out. And that makes so much sense to me. We spend more of our waking lives at work, whether we're in a physical workplace or whether we're, working from home or living at work. I love that expression. And so, how we treat people matters a great deal. And I think Phil said it best. He's quoted several times. Heather, the structure of the book, the ease of reading, and yet the power of the examples and the timeless principles. Well done. I can't wait to reread it. I will definitely, just like Andrea, I will definitely be rereading parts of it.
I was trying to get Phil on here because, wow. It's all I can really say about him. I mean, just as a human, he was referred to me by another kind of speaker author who, and I think he was in her book, and a lot of humility, but the amount of adversity he had to overcome, and then how he used that to kind of meet people in square in their shoes and envelope them and accept them was just tremendous. So that's why I decided to continue to highlight him throughout. So now I want Steve Paul. Steve Paul is actually a leader in the book. I have one person on this time. This morning we had a lot of people, kind of a good balance. We have Steve here from the book. And Steve, one of the things I love about Steve is, he shares a story inside the book about Zig Ziglar and this idea of making people feel important. So I don't know, Steve, share that. I'd love for you to share that story again, because it's a great one.
Okay, happy to do it. And congratulations, Heather. I mean, this is so amazing for you. So well deserved. So I was, this goes back a while, and we were in, I believe it was Washington, D.C. for the National Speakers Association annual convention. I did all the business development for a sales trainer, and I was walking, I was at a networking breakfast. I only ducked in there into the room to grab a cup of coffee because I really had someone else I wanted to see. And as I walked through the room, the typical networking breakfast room, the round tables of 10, I saw Zig Ziglar and the redhead at a table, and the table was full except for one seat. And I thought, oh my God, there's Zig. And so I walked up, I detoured, went right to their table, and I asked, may I join you? And Zig said, sure, sit right down. He invited me to sit down, and he made me feel like the most important person at that table. And I'll never forget that, because like right next to me was a guy that was on the cover of Success magazine, that month. And and Zig literally spent the next 20 minutes easily centering the conversation around me, asking me all kinds of questions, encouraging me. And he wanted to know what I spoke about and that sort of thing. And I said, oh, no, I do the business development. My partner is the sales trainer. And he said, well, you should be on stage. And I'm like, well, I feel like I have to accomplish something first, right? And he just wouldn't have any of it. He said, just get out there and start speaking, and it just encouraged me. And I never forgot that. I mean, Zig was so kind, so compassionate, so energetic, just like you would know him from his tapes or his videos and that kind of thing. And I carried that forward. I'll never forget that. And so it made me, kind of supercharged to encourage people around me. And it also made me really understand the impact that each of us can have in any given moment, right? Mm-hmm. That any given moment to interact with someone eye to eye right there. So important.
Mm. Yeah, it is. And the thing is the reason why I put you in there is that it was that story, but it was also because you embody that idea of importance where you really give people attention. And so that's why every time I was, with people, it's like, what is the thing that I sense from them that continues to show up, and how, why is this so important? And I think back as a leader, managing teams, the majority of my life, thinking through what the feedback was from people after I left to me about what it was that made them like me or love me or whatever it was, right? And it was like, you did this and you did that. And I would say, wow, after a while, I was like, I keep hearing this thing. I need to capture this thing. And then when you hear the leaders talking about it, it's like, that's the thing. So what this book does is it takes this nebulous thing, I care, and it creates something more tangible, something you can put your hands around, something you can say, if I focus on these 9 things, I can then be known as more caring to those that I lead. They will feel the difference in my leadership when I focus on those things. So it was just giving us something to really hold on to. We talk about this a lot. I care. And it's not just leaders at work. Well, obviously, that's the focus. But at the beginning of the book, if you go to it, you'll see it says anybody who considers himself a leader. So that's somebody in the home, someone in the community, somebody in the workplace, in any environment. If you feel like you are someone who influences another person's actions or outcomes, right? You feel you're that kind of person, then you are a leader. And then this book is for you. So don't think that you have to put it down because you don't have a manager title. that would be just
Right.
the opposite, is what I would say.
Absolutely.
Right?
And if you don't mind me interjecting something else, I do come from the world of construction and ran very successful construction businesses over the years. And even though it can have a reputation for being a man's world or a little rough around the edges, very encouraged by all the women that are coming into this world. But I want to emphasize that guys need this. There's a lot of guys that just think they're all tough and everything, but they need to be heard. They want to be productive, and they want to hear some of the ideas. You know, everyone brings something to the table, so you have to hear what they have to say, and, you know, encourage them along the path, give them some career paths. But this kind of so-called soft skills, it's hard. And you know what? Guys need it. They need it a lot more than people think. And I just kind of wanted to emphasize that.
I love that. And so before I go on to Sarah, because I'm not forgetting about you. Don't you think for a minute. I want to recognize the people that are actually out that I can see in the chat. So number one, I see you. You are present. I see you, and thank you so much for being here and interacting out there. I'm seeing all the things that are happening, and I also want to take this moment to thank my team. That would be Monica and Ashley, and oh my gosh, Nikki Groom and Adrian, and the list literally goes on. And I want to make sure I thank Barrett Kohler, in particular, my editor Steve Parasanti. He is actually on here in the chat. I see him here. Such a supportive gentleman. And so I just feel super, super blessed with the team that I'm surrounded with. And the reason why that's important, again, is because Monica just said to me before we started, do you realize we just created our own separate universe? But it's not just the book. With the caring leadership community and the coaches and the academy and the self-assessment, we've kind of created this caring world that we want to congregate people in, and right to touch our hearts and to touch the world and impact leaders. So it's no small feat. And then you have the book on top of that. So it's not me. Like I said, I have a whole team helping with all of this, and it's just like, so it's exciting to know that that's there. And I wanted to make sure that the text itself could live on, and that leaders could be changing constantly after they read the book, and they could use it. Cordelia was amazing at this. I'm going to introduce them in a minute, but the idea of this is a guide, like you will be in your sessions going, and so when Phil said this thing, and you're really referencing it in an active way because the stories are real. So I'm super excited about that. So let's go to Sarah, and then I'm going to kind of go back to why there's so many people called caring leadership coaches on the screen. What's that about?
Well, thanks, Heather. I'm honored to be participating in this. And I love what everybody's saying about the book. And Steve, you're right. Men need it too, in terms of we need to care about men in the workplace. But I think what I come from is a lot of public sector experience, men and women in supervisory roles that think they're good bosses. And they're not. They don't demonstrate care. And even if they do care about you, they don't demonstrate it in the ways that Heather talks about in her book. And so even if you know they actually care about you, because here in Montana, really family does come first here. So even with a boss that isn't a caring leader, if I say my kid has a program at school, they say, go to the school, go to the program. And that demonstrates care to a certain extent, but there are so many other aspects of it that I needed that I wasn't receiving. And what I loved about the book was that I am not a touchy-feely person. And a lot of my work feels that way. I see these two engineer background people on the call, like Stace, and I think, well, she can probably really relate to this. I'm not touchy-feely, and yet I know that this book will help people who aren't touchy-feely still demonstrate care. And that's the key for me, is that you don't have to be touchy-feely to demonstrate that you care about people in appropriate ways that will help them be better employees, more innovative, trust themselves to make mistakes and what do they call it? Fail forward. There are all kinds of ways to demonstrate care without being a touchy-feely person. And that's what I liked about the book.
Ooh. Yeah, I love that. But I am a touchy-feely person, so I'm going to go ahead and just own that right now. You know what? And that's just the way it is. I want to make sure before I forget. So thank you, Carmen, like everybody who's out there, Carmen, Nikki, Steve, oh boy, everybody's out there. Thank you so much for interacting. One thing I wanted to mention is that we are just for interacting in the chat, we're actually going to do random drawing for 5 signed copies of the book. So even if you already have the book, you'll get a signed copy. You can give the other one to a friend and they won't have the signed copy. The other thing is if you write a review and you go and you post that you've done that on LinkedIn and you just kind of loop me in, then we will then put you in a drawing for these 5 $25 Starbucks gift cards. So I'm going to mention that one other time. And of course, you'll see my team doing that in the chat. But I want you, the idea is to take action one way or another. So if you buy the book, it's not just about buying the book. It's about changing your life and the lives of other people that look to you for guidance, right? So that is the action item there. And when you do the review, it helps more people see it so that they can change the lives of people around them. So that's the idea here. Awesome. Okay. So for those who didn't hear before, I handpicked 8 coaches, and a few of them are in the virtual audience, and a few of them were on the screen. And it was because I was thinking to myself, when I've taken assessments before, StrengthsFinder or anything, I get it, I read it, I ponder, and I may or may not, if I'm working with a coach, I may or may not be able to work with them on that. Or it might be, if I'm taking the assessment, and of course I'm going to be invited to this wonderful community of people who want to be more heart-centered, and want to learn, we're caring leaders in development pretty much, then I might want to have someone help me kind of tinker a little bit with my assessment results. And so that way I was thinking, okay, who is it that I could trust that I think can embody this, who can live this out? And I know in their own unique angles, not my angle, because they're all like so diverse in their approach, how they could actually help leaders who enter into this community. And so voila, again, there are 5 of those coaches on the screen, a few more that were on this morning. And so that's why you have Cordelia and Brooke and Stace and Sarah and Andrea on here. And then we have Brian and Gary are also coaches who are just not on here at this point, but they were well, at least one was on this morning. So that's why they're here. And I just want to impart upon you that when you get the book, you enter an entire, as I said, a new world, a new universe that really wraps around you with this caring leadership concept. And then you start to really learn how you can embody the behaviors. So I wanted to say that. Okay, so let's see if there's anybody here that I haven't seen in a while that I want to recognize. Renee, hello. The love queen, the love in the workplace. Good to see you there. Sharon, hello. Portia. Jane Fishberg's on here. Yay. Lisa, I have some people here that I have known for years. Emily, love ya. Deb Fine. Keith, oh, so good to see you. It's been forever. Keith Fryer is in the book. So I love when I'm going to try to make sure I bring everybody up who's in the book and I see him out here. I'll mention it. So I wanted to make sure want you to know that I see you, that we know you're out there, and also ask questions. So if there's something someone says something and you want to ask a question of the team, I will put the question on the screen and everybody can see that as well. Okay. So what are other things that you'd like to point out related to the book? Something that like struck you, something that you felt it was just really impactful, and maybe you haven't even been able to stop thinking about that particular concept or that behavior.
I like the concept of involving them, because sometimes it's amazing where some of these great ideas come from, and that can really help engage someone, and not only engage them, but really, help start them, like kickstart them on their way to, really helping out the team and really, growing fast in their career. And, to stop and listen, and involve everyone, even from the new hires or the entry level people. That's a really important factor that I liked from the book.
Yes. The involving them is so important. When I think of involve them, I think of Patty Salazar, which she was on here right now. And she is the one who she was talking to me about, and of course she's inside the book, but I think about the fact that she's so busy being an executive at the highest level of our state, and having to be like being double booked and all these things, and getting to the point where she's like, I have to go to my team. I can't do this alone. And I need to just be able to lean on them and to go and be transparent and open, and kind of, again, opening up the heart to say, I don't have this. I don't got this. Right. And so can you help me get this? And for them to all kind of rally around her. And so I think that, again, that was exemplary of just the idea of that we think as leaders, we have these like bat capes or something. We have these like hard shells that can't be penetrated. And I think when we think of involve them, it says, no, we're going to open up a little, we're going to soften up a little bit, and we're going to let them know we need help. So thank you for that. That's a pretty critical one. Anybody else?
And I always love the leading the whole person. So I think when I remember my first job, I was literally told that I should bring leave my personal side at the door and bring my professional side into the office. And I really, really struggle with that. Oh, how am I supposed to do that? Nobody told me how to do it. So it's so important that we look at them as the whole person. So I love that concept. It stayed with me after reading the book, like many other things. So it's when you say, Heather, just one thing, like Andrea was having a hard time. How do I choose the one thing? Or Cordelia was saying that. But that's really, really important, because it really, again, reminds me of the other caring leader whom I love, Bob Chapman. In his book is also saying 88% of people don't feel like they're cared for. Not cared for as a human being. Obviously, they're cared for as a number, somebody who's going to do the sales and everything, but not as a whole person. So I think that's really, really important. So that stayed with me, because you also elaborated and talked so eloquently about that, Heather. Thank you for that.
And
I did try to include other people's stories as much as I could, not my own, right?
Yeah, coming from an accounting background, I appreciated the ROI of caring leadership, because that's something that speaks to everybody, right? Whether or not you're a homeschooling mom like me, right? Or, a different kind of leader, the bottom line really matters, because you want to see, your team, if it's your team kids or your team staff, really meeting their full potential. So yeah.
Love it.
I love that too, Cordelia. And, we know the stereotypes about engineers and accountants, but hey, we're all people. We have that in common, and we all have a heart. In my case, you might have to scratch the surface a little bit to find it. Heather, the chapter that I think spoke most to my heart right off the bat was about creating psychologically safe spaces, create space for them. And as somebody who's an extrovert in search of a little introversion, I really appreciate that. I think a world in which everybody feels that they belong somewhere is really, really important. And folks, all of us here today have that potential to create that opportunity for those we work with, those we lead, those who lead us, for heaven's sake, are in need of caring too. And that psychological safety that you wrote about, Heather, is more important today than ever. Again, because so many people are living at work, not just working from home. I think we have to really look at the whole person, as you said, Brooke, and we have to make sure that we're taking into account what they might need that they're not asking for. And they're not going to volunteer that until folks like me learn to shut up a little bit and create a little airtime for them. By the way, I also want to give a special shout out to somebody who's on today. Heather, my buddy Raymond Thomas is on from Singapore. Raymond is a fantastic leader, coach, facilitator, and it is so early there that I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming with us from around the world to truly help us feel that global sense of unity and belonging here.
Yes, and I'm going to add he has a question that he just asked on the screen. So was there a correlation between cultural background and caring? I did not see that trend, Raymond. I didn't see that. The people that have been on my show are from all walks, every industry, many countries, socioeconomic different, all levels. Some are supervisors, some are managers, some are directors, some are CEOs. I just think that they're just all different. So I would say no. Here's one thing that someone asked me earlier, though, is do I feel like compassion and caring are synonymous? which I think is an amazing question, actually. I do broach that inside the book about compassion and empathy, but I do have to say that leading up to the book and before it was like already too late to make any changes to it, and even the idea, I started to realize, particularly during the pandemic, that empathy, the empathy and compassion equation is so critical to this concept. And so that empathy is the sensing other people's emotions and like getting in their shoes and getting in their space and understanding. And the compassion is that action part. It's being prepared to take action on behalf of another to kind of alleviate their pain. Two different things that has become more and more heightened for me. And that is a huge foundation of this caring leadership philosophy. So that a caring leader, there's a few things. You have to have an awareness that you need to change. You have to have the desire to change, and then the drive to see it through. And so if you don't have like the emotional intelligence side, you don't actually even have an awareness of like what's happening to people in front of you and a desire to go change it for them, then you're not going to ever get there. So you just, I don't know what to say to you. If you don't have that, you can't get there. But if you have an awareness, like an inkling that something's quite not right, it's not right. I'm reading this thing, I'm hearing these things. It kind of sounds like me, but maybe not so much. Maybe I didn't do that thing that Steve did. Maybe I didn't do that, maybe I can get there though. And that's what we're attempting to do, is to say, this is how you get there. Are you going to be perfect? Absolutely not. I'm not. No one else on the screen is. Nobody in the audience is. But if we can just get better every day, just a little bit every day, and commit to that, and then we're going to move forward and we will change lives. We will impact the lives of those we lead. So who's next? Andrea, did you talk yet about the book? Because you had great stories. I remember the stuff that she's been putting in the community, the caringleadership.co community, about all these stories of managers. I've been just like, wow. I felt like you've been so introspective about it that like maybe you hadn't thought about it, and all of a sudden it's really bringing all this stuff up for you. I'd love to, have you just share a story or something too. I hear baby in the background.
Sure. I think Sarah wanted to go, so Sarah, you'll be next.
Oh, Sarah, were you going? Whoever wanted to go next.
No, go ahead, Andrea. That was a good question.
Thank you. Yes, as I said before, as I was reading the book, for me, all these caring leaders and stories that from my past showed up. And one of the things that I want to say to everyone who's listening, that that perspective of, if you think, I think Sarah mentioned it, if you think that you're a caring leader, that's one thing. But if your employees and your team think that you are a caring leader, now that is a different perspective. That is a perspective that this book will get you, where the people that you work with will stop by and will say things like, I'm just so happy to be on your team. Just tell me what I need to do and I will do it. The people who go beyond almost their skill level too, to be part of the team. So one of the stories, so you asked before, what was something in the book that kind of stayed with me, is chapter 2, make them feel important. And that was about, I wrote in the community about my memory of being an intern, first coming into the corporate world. And my story is that I interviewed with a different manager, and 2 weeks before I arrived, I was notified that, well, that manager was promoted, so you're not going to work with that manager. Here's a stranger that you're going to work with. So that's what I did. I prepared myself that I don't know what I'm going to do this summer and who I'm going to work with. Where I went from, I thought I did, and I was excited, to, wow, I was totally scared. But luckily, a caring manager started working with me. And I say starting working with me because I think he started working with me before I even arrived. When I showed up the first day, there was a team member who welcomed me and took me to the place where I was supposed to go and work at. And I had these nightmares before where I'm going to just be lost. I'm just going to be lost just getting to my desk, and I will never get there. And the little things that the first day the manager made me feel important were, he pretty much told his team beforehand that I'm going to arrive. And each team member kind of took me and invited me to their desk or their meeting or their lunch or wherever they were doing that day. I was with them. So I felt important. I felt like, oh wow, I'm just an intern, but these people are really fun and they really care about me. So again, nobody told me that they cared about me, but I felt that way. And that is what this book will do for those who intentionally will follow these 9 behaviors and try them on. Just try doing them, see what happens, have an open mind, and watch your team as you deliver these.
Thank you. That was awesome. Love that story. Sarah?
That was
Sarah, were you gonna
terrific.
say that?
Oh, that was
Oh, yeah, it
terrific,
was awesome.
Andrea.
I know. She's awesome. That
And
story is awesome.
of course, I'm a big believer in telling a story to unlock the story of somebody around you. And I immediately was taken back to a position that I had with the university system here in Montana. We were fixing the transfer issues among college students among the state schools. And I had a very different experience at the start where I really didn't get the feeling that anyone cared about me. As a matter of fact, I started after many years of working in Washington, D.C., I moved to Montana and could not get a job. It's a real good old boy. You got to know somebody to get in. So when I finally accepted a position, it was as an administrative assistant in a state agency. And at half, I'm not exaggerating, half my salary that I left just a couple of years before. But I needed a job. I needed health insurance. I took the job. And I remember shortly after I took my job, the other admins would come to me and ask if I would watch the phones for them so they could go out to lunch. Multiple times that happened. I was never actually invited to join them for lunch. And I remember thinking, wow, what did I just put myself into? What did I step in? It was really horrible. But then my boss, who was also kind of an outsider because he was on loan from one of the schools. So we were at basically like the corporate headquarters of the Montana University system. And he had been on loan from Montana Tech to manage this project. And as soon as he saw what I was really good at, he started making sure that I was doing more of that and less of the other stuff. And I didn't know at the time that that's what was happening. But basically, he figured out that I was really good at facilitating conversations among faculty and administrators. And so he actually encouraged me to continue to do that work, which eventually turned into my job. So the leadership eventually realized what I was doing. They upgraded my position. They upgraded my salary. And he knew that as long as I was doing what I was really good at, that I would shine and the agency would shine. And I can tell you, we got so many people to the table that were really uncomfortable with the whole idea. And they bought into our project because my boss and I had such great rapport with them. And the dynamic was just really strong and trusting. And I remember reading in your book about uncovering people's strengths and making sure you're acknowledging what people are good at. And that's something that every person, this is how you show care if you're not a touchy-feely leader, is you find out what they're really good at and you encourage them to keep doing those things. And you take other things off their plate that doesn't light them up. You take the thing off their plate that you see is draining their energy, and you find their talents, their natural instinctive talents. And that was a part of the book, of course, because I'm a StrengthsFinder coach, that it just immediately sucked me right into that book. Like, yes, you don't have to have StrengthsFinder to know that you can ask the right questions and watch what people are good at to identify their talents, even if they don't take an assessment.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I that's critical. It's one of the things. I have two superpowers. So while there's 9 behaviors, I'm not going to tell you I exhibit all those 100%. I do the assessment too, and I am not high on all those scores. But there are 2 areas that I'm particularly good at. One is appreciation and recognition. I'm kind of stellar in that area. And the other area would be this area right here, which is like finding the little, like, oh, I saw that thing. So I'm recognizing that thing, and then I'm going, oh, let's do more of that thing. Let's put you over here and do that thing. And so and that's just critical, because most people are ignoring that thing, that seed of greatness inside of people. Most people, managers, are ignoring it. But I take a lot of time. I remember one place I worked at, they would say, how do you have so much time as a director? How do you have so much time to recognize people, whether you're on your team or not? I'm like, well, how do I not have the time? I get a lot more done than you do. Number one, I love doing it. I get dopamine boost when I do it. And we get a lot done together, which is why I believe in widening the circle. So like this book has 80 or 90, however many leaders there are in there based upon what State says. And it's because I decided to bring more people to the table. It wasn't just like Heather's voice. It's all these people's brilliance, all their angles, right, shining through to display for you all what caring leadership is. So I think when we know what those brilliance points are, we should use them, and then we should pull them out in others too. So, okay, Brooke, I haven't heard, or Cordelia, I haven't heard from either of you in a little bit. Anything?
Yeah, I think like on top of what you already said, Heather, like to give the examples and what you heard from many, many, many leaders that you have spent time to listen really well. I think your stories also were very important. I always love to hear the stories embedded into the book of the author. And I think a lot of your examples with the family, with your children, what you have encountered in your own work experience, I think those really make you even bond with the author. Of course, I feel bonded to you because I'm lucky to have known you for a while. But when I'm not, that's also a really big part of it. You're not just saying it, you're embodying it, which I know, but also giving those little examples here and there, not only of the CEOs of this world, but really, like you said, you are the leader in the family, in the community, in the nonprofit that you volunteer. So all those examples really take it to your heart, and you make it like, okay, I don't have to have those big titles to be a caring leader, right? We can be a caring leader everywhere we are. So I think that was also very brilliantly done in your book. So thanks for sharing more of your stories too.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wish I could tell you that was my initial inclination. It was not. My initial inclination is what I told you I have a superpower of, is to raise everybody else up and everybody else's voice up. That's my superpower, but it can mean then that I demean my own voice. So how I came to that is that Barrett Kohler was kind enough to let 3 reviewers look at the book. And the 2 of them said, every time you tell your stories, I really lean in. Can you do that more often?
No.
Yeah. I had more stories of everybody else, which I still did. There's a lot of stories, a lot of people's voices in there. But I was very purposeful. I had to be Heather, where can you insert yourself into your own book? And that's what happened. That's just the truth of the matter.
Yeah, it would have been missing out for him, because it really, really bonds with the author, and it makes it more real to me. So I'm glad they gave you that advice, because you're so nice and humble. Of course, you have to like rise up everyone, but not yourself. So that's also normal about you, but I'm glad they did it.
Thank you. Cordelia?
Yeah, I'm just listening to everyone, and I'm thinking back. I'm like, can I think of like situations like when I was working or other times? And I'm so glad that Brooke brought up about nonprofits, because like that's the only time I can think of I've ever worked with caring leaders, And who was it? Sarah, you used to be in Washington, D.C., right? Yeah. So, I mean, because my background, like I was on Capitol Hill, I worked in law firms, and then, accounting firms. So like caring leaders, I'm sad to say, just haven't crossed my path when I worked. But, once I stopped working and I've been working in nonprofits, I'm on some boards, there are a lot of caring leaders. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is the way you show up at work is the way that you show up at home and in your life and in your community. And, to Brooke's point about don't bring your, leave your social part behind and just bring your profession. I mean, a human being is a human being. And as a whole person, your core is going to be the same no matter where you are. Mm-hmm. So, it's very important to, if you like the way that you're being perceived at work, like you're a very hard leader or whatever, then practice these 9 behaviors at home. Start there, practice it in, your community. And then once you see the ROI on that, bring it to work. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said something earlier, which is true. It's fundamental in the book, is that in order to remove the nebulous concept idea, you have to put action behind it. So it's the expression of care. It's not talking about care. It's not saying you're a caring leader. It's the expression of care in consistent ways. The other thing to keep in mind is employees or team, those who look to us for guidance or leadership are the end user of the leadership experience. So they are, in the end, the ones who sniff test whether we think we care or not, right? Because they experience us. It's interesting to think of it that way, isn't it? We experience our own leadership when we think of self-leadership and the fact that we might not exercise self-care, be authentic, be congruent, the things I mentioned in the book. But when we think about that the outward view of leadership in the family and the community, it's the end user are our children, those in the community, those who we surround ourselves with. So again, just keeping that in mind, that they are the end users, and it's their perception and their feeling after we leave them, how we interact with them, that makes all the difference in whether we are caring leaders or not.
Heather, I have to tell you that when I started reading the book, after the first chapter, I had this thought of, I have a teenager. Maybe I can just try these out with my teenager. Honestly, that's the thought I had, like, these are great 9 steps that I can play around and do it with my teenagers, see what happens. So I am with you.
Yes, you're because you're a leader in your home. And so that totally makes it. All of these things apply in that regard. I think about it. That's why you see some of my personal stories, and they're about like my daughter and this son and this, right? Because I am a leader in my home. I don't take that for granted. And these things show up there. And I think Raymond said, it seems like the things that are in the personal life also kind of show up in the professional life. Absolutely. I mean, unless we're not who we say we are. I mean, right? So if who we are who we say we are, then the experience will be very similar. Now, we aren't all the time 100% congruent in every place, right? But we can try to have a closer alignment with that. So this is what Raymond said. I'm going to put this on the screen, and maybe any of us, as the coaches on here, the caring leadership coaches, can answer. It doesn't have to be me. If there's one tip on how to practice care deliberately, what would that be? Well, I guess that might be me answering first, but I still want you all to chime in, because these are the caring leadership coaches. The deliberate practice of care. I think the biggest thing is to slow down and this is easier for me to say because I'm an empath, but it really is to sense those around you. So sense the space around you. So it's that calming down, it's stopping, and it's sensing what's happening right around you and inside of you. So I'd say those are kind of the two things. What's happening inside of you, what's happening right around you in the space around you. That, I think that's the very first way in my mind to be deliberate, which is why I start off with all those self-leadership concepts, because we have to be able to know us and others. We have to understand how we feel in any environment, what's triggering us. We have to understand all those things before we can then show up for other people. And then we have to sense in the small, like micro level, and then the macro level, maybe organizationally, if we're looking at that, what's happening there holistically. That helps us kind of gain a better, more objective view and able to go forward. So again, it's not as it may sound squishy, but I'm thinking, as I see Sarah's smiling face, I think that actually does not sound very methodical. It's very, very process sounding, isn't it?
It is.
But I mean, it starts from the heart, but there is a process behind it. And that's what I would say, Raymond.
Do you mind if I'd love to add just a little bit to that. Because I've now mostly raised 2 boys. They are now almost 20 and 22. And one of the things that I think is most successful in terms of parenting is that they are both very considerate human beings. And I think if you're going to be deliberate about care, being considerate means being aware of the impact of your words and your actions on the people and the environment around you. So as Heather said, you take that moment and think about how your words or how your actions or how your behaviors, your physical expressions are impacting the people and the environment around you. And as an example of that, when my older son was 2, we were on an airplane, and I had flown a lot as a PeopleSoft consultant and flown with a lot of children that weren't mine. It was many good and bad experiences like that. So I was particularly sensitive. So I remember I was sitting with Jacob, and there was an empty seat. So he was sitting in the seat next to me, and he put his feet on the seat in front of him, and he was kind of pushing with his legs. And I said, Jacob, please don't do that. And he looked at me a little puzzled, and I said, there's a person in the seat in front of you. So when you kick that seat or push on it, they feel it. And it's probably annoying. Wouldn't you be annoyed if somebody was kicking the seat behind you? Would that bother you? And he kind of nodded, and I said, so please, here's a toy, or here's a lollipop, whatever I needed for distraction. But basically the concept was, be considerate. It's not about you. It's about this person that's sitting in front of you that may be irritating. And that doesn't mean you can always be considerate and stop what you're doing, because there are times where at least you're intentional about it. If you're considering, as that your first thing in demonstrating care is considering, that's a really, really good start.
I love that.
And, I would just add to that, this is where self-leadership matters, because the way our children, right, see us treating ourselves, the things that we allow, the things that, it's like, oh, I'll eat later, I'll sleep later, right? People learn how to be by watching, right? Not so much by what you say. I mean, words are very powerful. Don't get me wrong. That's not really what I'm trying to convey here. But I'm just saying, have your video match your audio. So walking the path is great, but you gotta, talking the path is great, but walking the path is even greater. And so that's super important when we're talking about leadership.
Yes. Always, I wish I could say I'm the poster child of this. I have my kids calling me on the carpet well, not every day, but they call me on the carpet, and which keeps me humble and makes me realize I'm not all that in a bag of chips. All right. There's areas of strength I have that I can display and bring other people in it, but it's just, this is what it is. This is leadership. It's messy. I say that it's messy. We're a mashup, but we get a choice. We get a choice on how we show up. Yes, Stace.
If I can remember what platform I'm on, how to unmute myself. I love that, Cordelia, about walking the path, not just talking the path, and raising considerate people is super important. There is a great chat going on. I see Carmen out there and Veronica. The importance of listening and not having a preconception. Listening to understand rather than to respond. I did want to share a quick story. I worked with a young leader a few years ago at a semiconductor design firm that this part of their company was in Boulder, Colorado. And he shared something that just knocked out the whole class. He's a very young guy, very new to leadership. But he said, before every conversation, most of us play in our heads kind of how we want the conversation to go, what we're trying to get from the person we lead. He said, I've started asking myself a different question. How do I want the relationship to be when the conversation is over? And I was gobsmacked. I mean, I literally went silent as I let that soak in. And I thought, what a powerful tip for showing you care is to think first about the relationship with that other whole human being.
That is powerful. That's like an amazing way to start to boil this down. And here's what I want to do next. So first, here's what I would say. Anybody who's watching now, if you want to take a picture of the screen, do that. Post that, right? Share it. Tell people to go buy it so we can kind of socialize all these messages. At the same time, don't forget that if just for being here, obviously you pick up the book. When you are just being here, we get to do a drawing for you. So 5 of you will get signed copies from me based upon the drawing. You and in the morning session. Looks like we have Chester joining. Let's see if he actually comes on here. And then what we'll do is we'll also do the drawing for the 5-star Starbucks gift cards for the people in the morning and in the evening. If you go write the review after you've actually done it, post it on LinkedIn so you can tell me that you've done it. Then I can go check it out. You'll go in the drawing for those as well. So it looks like there was the person who's trying to join is the person, Chester Elton. He's the one who wrote the foreword for my book. And I just said last minute, you want to jump on here? So he's trying to get on here. So here's what I want to do. And then I'll let him have some last remarks if he does end up joining. If we could have, let's start with Steve. if Steve, if you could say kind of the a key takeaway or something that you would really like people to know that's relevant to the book, to the work, to the idea of caring. If you could, share that, we'll go around, and then I'll bring Chester in, and then he can also share that too. Hi, Chester.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm at a
You're doing
hockey
great.
game. I'm doing well. I'm at a hockey game. Yeah. But I didn't want to miss
I love this.
book launch.
I love it. I love it. I was trying to get. Luckily, you don't have to stay on long, because we were just like I was having everybody do kind of a round robin and talk about why they thought things were important. Again, Chester Elton, wrote like many books. One was Leading with Gratitude, and this last one is Anxiety at Work. And then he wrote the foreword for the book, which he graciously did that. So then let's go around. We'll start with Steve. We'll go up, and then Chester, I'll give you an opportunity to kind of process what you might like to say about the book and the world, the concept of care, just out to people who are listening right now. So let's start with Steve.
Okay, so there is so much here, and I think we have to remember, not everybody's a good boss, like Sarah was saying. So good leaders stick their necks out, and they need to encourage their team to stick their necks out. So if we go to Melissa Eovine in the chapter on empowering your team to make decisions, she talks about the more specific detail you can give them with the freedom to do it in the way that they need is more efficient, because if there's something that needs to be done and they're creative in the way that they do it, then you're allowing both to happen. And it's so powerful, because without empowerment, a company cannot grow. And so that's a key takeaway.
Awesome. Thank you. Andrea?
My takeaway as I was listening right now and reading the book, you can't give what you don't have. So I love how you started the book with the self-care, figure out what kind of leader you are, what impact you're having, what leader do you want to be, and then how much you care about yourself. And then once you figured it out, as Cordelia said, at home or in your community, then you can start showing up in that caring spirit, with that energy, where I'm going to repeat myself. It's not you who thinks that you care. It's if your team thinks that you care about them, then you're at the level where you want to play, and you're going to make the impact that you actually want to make in the world.
Love it. Cordelia?
I'm going to stick with the having your video match your audio, because that's just, we emanate who we truly are. And just practice the 9 behaviors within yourself, and then you'll, emanate that wherever you go.
Thank you. Brooke?
And I might be a little bit biased here because I'm such a purpose person, but of course I highlighted meaningful work is a primary driver of employee loyalty. Really finding some meaning and some purpose in what you do makes a huge difference, and definitely even more than loyalty, it makes your life more fulfilling. So that's what I definitely am taking away from the book again, but also want to remind everybody who hasn't bought the book yet or haven't experienced yet, this is the experience that Heather has created. It's not only a book. That's what I'm feeling every day since Heather started talking about the book. It's the community. It's just getting together, learning from each other. And we're all at a different level of that scale of caring leadership, and it never ends. But wherever we find you, it's going to be okay. And we're all learning in this. So that's what I want to end with. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Heather, and everyone.
Thank you. Stace?
It's just so rich. It's what an honor to be part of this community and to have a chance in some small way to contribute to it. There's so much that sticks with me, but I think about a caring leader I had early in my career who said, Stace, other people's perceptions are their reality, even if they're not your truth. And I I think really I'm going to take away something you contributed, Cordelia, that I think is an absolutely perfect fit to the 42 different practices that make up the 9 behaviors in this book. And that is make your audio match your video and vice versa. That was just, that's a keeper right there, my friend. Thank you so much.
Love it. Sarah?
Well, I'm kind of piggybacking on Steve's empowerment section, because there are far too many leaders who don't address conflict in their organizations. And most of the conflict comes from people who aren't good managers, who aren't caring managers and caring leaders. And so when you empower your people to care about their people, you are changing the entire culture of the organization. So you have to be the one. If you influence people, you have to be the one to tell them it matters that you care about your people, and you have to demonstrate it. You have to match your audio with your video, as Cordelia would say. You have to demonstrate it among all the people that you have the potential to influence. So that's my big takeaway.
And Chester, thank you, patient, for waiting and joining from the hockey game. You are just, love you.
I am.
What
I'm
thoughts,
a
what
diehard
thoughts do you have?
I love the one about create safe places. I think that's so important. We talk a lot about psychological safety, and I think particularly now, people feel they might be an other. They're either women trying to come up in the workplace, or you're part of a minority. And I think, that chapter on create safe places is just genius. If you don't feel safe, there's no way that you can, be productive. And caring leaders know who need that extra attention and need that safe place. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Could
And
you
again,
hear me okay?
I could. I know you have the mask on. I so appreciate you, because I know you came on spontaneously and you're a busy guy. So I appreciate you doing that. I just wanted to make sure we had, number one, another gentleman on here. And of course, it's always nice to hear your perspective too. So,
Well, great. Well,
yay.
listen, I am out of here. We're playing the Rangers tonight. So go Devils.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, everybody, this has been wonderful. I so appreciate you again, all the support. Let's just go ahead and venture out. So we got the book. We have the book, right? Caring Leadership. We have the community. Go ahead and join it, caringleadership.co, and post it. So all these, take pictures of the screen right now and post this out on LinkedIn and share. I am here for you. I see you. We are all available. And again, just my heart goes out. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.